Let's talk about this new Flying Lotus album, Flamagra. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I apologize. This is the sixth studio album from Flying Lotus. Let me look that up. This is the sixth studio album from California-based record producer and electronic music extraordinaire Flying Lotus, who has made critically acclaimed after critically acclaimed albums ever since the early 2010s, and certainly this album is no exception. Going into this album, I was very intimidated because there are 27 tracks on this thing. Over an hour of material is laid bare across this album. Many features from Denzel Curry, Tierra Whack, wow, I'm forgetting them. There's many features on this album, trust me. There's a lot. Shabazz, I believe. So going into this album, I was quite intimidated because the length of it is certainly one to kind of look at and then kind of not look at it again, because you want to listen to albums that are quick, easy, and you can just listen to them over on repeat because you know it's just easier to listen to things and to do stuff quickly. But an hour, you have to sit there, you have to wait, and you have to actually experience this as a whole. But listening to this, and I just, that thought left my mind immediately. Because this is an album, a conceptual album that I think is the peak of Flying Lotus. It could get higher, obviously, but at this point in his career, he is solidified as being the most out there, the most interesting, and the most attention to detail producer there is today, especially in electronic and glitch hop and trip hop and all that other stuff. In music, he's one of the most innovative and most extraordinary producers today, alive, right now. In the moment, listening to this album, I realize it's very conceptual. Every track flows within one another. And while the singles are good outside of the album, like Spontaneous and More, they are certainly worked better within the album. Anderson .Paak's feature on the song More is very, very nice. But to kind of talk about more of the production on this album, funk-inspired, jazz-inspired, this is a sound that Flying Lotus plays around with, but actually honing in, it works so well in his favor. And he does so many different things across this album that pan out so well. I think one song that comes into mind that actually works very well within the track listing versus outside, because it was released as a single, Fire Is Coming, featuring David Lynch, the actor, I believe. This song is very weird. It's a very weird song. It's a very interesting little track that then goes into the next track. And that's one thing about this album, is that each song transitions from one to the next so cleanly, so nicely, and it's not like a fade out and then fade in. It's actually transitioning. It's not just copping out. That's what I like to call it. Talking about specific songs on here, Spontaneous is this 2-minute track that's very quick, very fast, very flow, very funky, enjoyable and nice. Black Balloons, a reprise, is certainly a track that I was excited for listening to this because it was one of the singles and it worked just so well and everything. Denzel Curry's verse is really nice as well, and it incorporates actual themes from Black Balloons, the song itself, not just another verse that's just completely different from the actual song, because it is a reprise. It certainly has to pertain to Black Balloons itself. Solange is featured on this album as well, and her track kind of appears at the end of this album. It is certainly nice. And the one thing I do have to say about this album is kind of a gripe, is that sometimes I feel songs are either too short or too long. 5-minute tracks versus 1.5-minute tracks. They do work well in the album, but if they were longer, if they were more drawn out, if they were actually thought about a little more, I feel like they could have gone the extra mile to think about to actually blossom into something really nice. And while there are some tracks that I think, yeah, this totally sounds really good for a minute 30, I don't think it should be longer. I don't think it should be shorter. I think there are just a couple songs that are too short to actually form into anything memorable or important across this entire album. Something that actually sticks. And this album as a whole, while yes, it is an hour long, it is tedious, it is certainly something you have to listen to get the full experience. You have to listen to it completely. You can't just listen to the bits and pieces here and there. You have to listen to this on an hour long car ride. Maybe you drive from, St. Louis to Jefferson City. I don't know. I don't live in Missouri. But maybe your commute is an hour and 7 minutes and you can listen to an album. Throw this on. Listen to it completely. You can't just listen to this half one day, half the other. It is a conceptual album. It is a concept album. You can't do that. I'm loving this album. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of Flying Lotus's best albums, while some people might like his previous efforts like You're Dead and Cosmogramma, I believe. Cosmogramma, whatever. Certainly albums before this one, I still think this might be his peak up to this point. Certainly he can improve upon here, but definitely an album that was worth the 4.5-year wait, I would say. I'm giving this album an A-. And with that said,